the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you're having a good Christmas Eve and anticipating a wonderful Christmas day. So hope it's going to be a wonderful time for all of you. Somebody says Yaron's been packing. Yes, I am in the midst of finishing packing. So I've got the movers coming in on Monday, and that's it. Goodbye, California. You know, Sunday we will do a show. That'll be the last show ever from this particular setup. So back to Puerto Rico on next week, and then we will see what the future holds. But yes, a very eventful Christmas for me in terms of anticipation of the move and getting ready for everything. Thank you all. I know Christmas Eve is not exactly the ideal time for you guys to be tuning in. I guess some of you are still doing last-minute wrapping of gifts. Some of you are baking, last-minute baking. Some of you I just hanging out. So I appreciate you choosing to share some of your time with me. I thought I just say a few things about Christmas, my view of Christmas, what I think Christmas is good for, why I think it's a great holiday, why I enjoyed it, but why I think it's a great holiday. The urban somebody says, let's guess how long it will take you on to repeat the urban legend that Christmas came from a pagan solstice holiday. It did. I'm not going to repeat it. I say it every year. I've already talked about it many times. It actually did come from a pagan holiday, as almost all the Christian holidays do. All of them are basically cribbed off of pagan holidays. The Jewish holidays do the same thing. They basically take the times of the year where the pagans had holidays, and they kind of wrap a Jewish or Christian holiday around that. All the habits, all the actual behaviors that we engage in at Christmas are all either pagan or just straight commercial. There's no relationship between the Christmas tree and Jesus. There's no relationship between giving gifts and Jesus. There is no relation between the way Christmas is celebrated, the timing of Christmas being right now, and everything else. None of that has anything to do with Christianity or with Jesus. It all has to do with the solstice, the winter solstice, and it has everything to do with winter and celebrating the shortest day and the end of winter, and has everything to do with the commercial, the wealth of the Americans in the 19th century, early 20th century, that had to do with selling stuff and creating a marketing campaign around Santa and reindeer and gift giving, and that is all just a brilliant, amazing capitalist marketing ploy, but it has nothing to do with Jesus or Christianity. So none of this. As you find a connection. You find a connection between Christmas tree, Santa Claus, reindeer, gift giving, and just lights and everything else that's associated with Christmas. You find a connection between that and Jesus. Good luck. Good luck. Jesus or Christianity, good luck. I mean, it's just not there. It is about, particularly in the modern form, it's about American enterprise, American stores, American entrepreneurs, finding a way to leverage a minor religious holiday into a major cultural event. And Christmas is really a cultural event. So I love Christmas. It's a great time. It tends to be a relaxing time. December tends to be a time where people relax between, even as intense as work is. It's always a time where people slow down just a little bit. Business just gets delayed a little bit. Not this year for me because of the move and because of everything else going on, but it's nothing happened on Christmas. Just last point on the religion stuff. Jesus was not born in Christmas. Jesus was born in March, April, probably. There's nothing to connect Christmas with, Christianity, other than the fact that they wanted to take over a pagan holiday. That is not an urban myth. It is. That is the fact. Anyway, forget about that. Not important. So this year has not been particularly relaxing for me, just because of the move and everything else going on. I am, for those of you who don't know, I am basically shutting down, selling my home in California, leaving California forever. Actually, I had an experience today that confirmed my decision. I had to do something. That related, I guess, to the regulations of the state of California. Basically, I was told I couldn't do what I wanted to do. There was no way to get around it. I am stuck. I'm stuck. I'm going to have to talk to a lawyer on Monday. Simple transaction that should be easy and simple, and certainly in places like Nevada and Florida is a simple transaction, is a nightmare, and for me right now, an impossibility because of the regulations in the state of California. So I am in the process of packing and selling my house in California and moving permanently to Puerto Rico and buying a place in Puerto Rico that'll be my permanent home for the next at least decade. So it's exciting, but it's a lot of work and was not very relaxing while trying to do these shows, trying to do my hedge fund work and everything else. It's been an intense few weeks. But I love Christmas usually, not this year, for the fact that it is a time for reflection, a time when things slow down a little bit, a time that you can take time for yourself, a time to invest in yourself, a time to do some introspecting and to plan for next year and to think about what happened during the year that has just passed. I will be doing a show on December 31st, and the show from December 31st will be a retrospective for 2020. It'll be a kind of review of the year, and it is also going to be a show in which we'll have a $5,000 match. So we have an anonymous supporter who is doing will contribute dollar for dollar anything we raise up to $5,000. So this will be my big telethon night. And we will do a 2020 review of 2020, highlights, lowlights, lots of lowlights of 2020, the year I cannot wait to see end for a variety of professional and personal reasons. It is the year from hell. So I'm really, really excited about getting it over with and getting to 2021. 2020 was really the worst year for me personally that I can remember, at least in the last 30, 40 years. So I'm happy to get this over with. What better way to get it over with than with a big bang, which will be a $5,000 match show. And for those of you who I hope you all show up, I hope you'll bring your friends, I hope you'll bring your checkbook. But it is, that show will be at 4 p.m. Pacific time on 3/31, so 7 p.m. Eastern time. And even Europeans will be up because it'll be closer to midnight. It'll be just past midnight over in Europe. It'll be in the UK, it'll be exactly 12 o'clock. And in Europe, it'll be 1 a.m. The rest of Europe, in Israel, it'll be 2 a.m. So you'll all still be returning from your parties a little drunk. What better time than that to raise money? So hopefully we can get you all engaged, get you all supporting the show. We've got a lot of exciting plans for 2021, including the building of a new studio. Whatever we raised will help to build a new studio. 5,000 will help you on pay for the move. 5,000 will be a tiny fraction of the total cost of this move. It turns out to move to Puerto Rico with the stuff I have, which includes a lot of artwork, is a big project. $5,000 will just be the beginning. But of course, it's a $5,000 match. So we can raise $10,000 during the night. So if you guys contribute $5,000, we will get the $5,000 match, and we will have $10,000. And that'll be an unbelievable end to 2020 and a great beginning for 2021. And again, 2021 will include hopefully a new green screen studio and some new equipment. I'm thinking of upgrading the camera and creating some soundproofing, some acoustic material in the room to improve the sound. So it'll be cool. So that's all going to be in 2021, probably around March, April, as I move into a new place in Puerto Rico. Rez, thank you. Merry Christmas. Rez, I think, is still banned on YouTube. Is that right? But really appreciate that. Thanks, Cook. Merry Christmas to you. Jeffrey, thank you. Merry Christmas. Andrew asks, why do you think Judaism in practice is more miserable than Christianity, despite it being more healthy philosophically? For example, the major holidays. Why do I think Judaism in practice is most miserable? Because Jews are being persecuted. I mean, but Jews existentially have lived more miserable lives. They've been persecuted, attacked, murdered, killed, in all kind of ways. And I think that has inculcated a certain level of kind of, cultural misery, cultural complaining, and cultural confusion, because Jews are the chosen people, and yet, in spite of the fact that they're chosen, God seems to keep punishing them. And what have we done wrong? What have they done wrong? What have the people done wrong? So there's constantly this pining in Judaism to a time where Jews are not persecuted and where they're back home. Now the home exists, Israel exists, and the persecution for the most part has gone, but it's still a cultural force within the community. But generally, I don't think Jews are actually more miserable. They complain more, but I don't think they're more miserable than Christians. And I think Christianity is actually a more miserable religion when practiced seriously. The thing about American Christian, and I've told this to evangelicals and American Christians quite often, I've told them, the thing about American Christians is that they're not real Christians, is that American Christians actually love Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution more than they love the Bible. And what they've done is they've taken Jesus and the Bible and they've morphed them and perverted them and distorted them to fit their love of America. So the real religion of American Christians is America, or at least has been in the past. And they have converted Christianity into a supposedly pro-capitalist, pro-individual rights, pro-freedom-loving religion, and a positive, optimistic religion. None of that is in the religion. That is all them distorting it. You don't find any of those characteristics among Christians anywhere else in the world. Christianity everywhere else in the world is associated with socialism. It's associated with misery. It's associated with suffering. It's associated with sacrifice. Only in America do you have a church that says that God wants you to be successful and make lots of money. Everywhere else, they take seriously the idea that it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So don't evaluate Christianity, qua set of ideas, by the way some evangelicals want to practice it, and even then they can't do it consistently. So ultimately, Christianity is a religion of misery, unfortunately, and that conflict is on the one hand these preachers telling you how you should live your life to the fullest. On the other hand, they're telling you need to sacrifice and to give up and and that's what Jesus did, and that's the ideal, and it's a moral ideal. It's part of what creates the cognitive dissonance, the confusion, and the the problems.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, Siri, stop it. The problems with it among, I think, American Christians, and of leading them down a bad path. So I think I answered the question, Andrew. If not, you can ask a follow-up. Do you have any thoughts on Ben Shapiro following in your footsteps and moving his news media company with 75 employees from California to Tennessee permanently? HP and article are moving also. I didn't hear that HP is moving. That would be huge. Because HP basically was the first company to establish. Hewlett and Packard started their company. It was the first tech company in Silicon Valley. In the garage, that's the idea of starting your company in a garage, goes back to HP and its beginnings. So I didn't know HP is moving. That would be huge. Article I know is moving, Larry Ellison. Yeah, I mean, I think that more and more people are waking up to the idea that if you want to live well, if you want to keep your money, if you want to, not be susceptible to the kind of regulation and bureaucracy that I was susceptible to this morning, then you shouldn't live in California. California is not a friendly place for an individualist, for a productive person. Now, it's difficult to leave places like Silicon Valley. It's difficult to leave places like Hollywood because of massive networking effects, because of the talent that's available there, because of the social aspect of it, and because the beauty of California and the beautiful weather in California. But more and more people are finding that it's the right thing to do for them. I think Ben Shapiro is making so much money now that he must be writing 6-figure checks to the California government, and has said enough is enough, and he's moving to Tennessee, which has no state income tax. So Nashville is a beautiful place to live. We will see how friendly Nashville is to a Orthodox Jew like Ben Shapiro, but I assume he did his research and he knows what he's getting into. Article is founded by and still run by, I think, Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison is while very friendly to Donald Trump, he's also was very impacted by Atlas Shrugged. He is a fan of Ayn Rand's, while not being an objectivist. He's a fan of Ayn Rand. So it doesn't surprise me that at some point Ellison said, this just isn't worth it. It's time to move, and I think he's moving to Texas, as was Joe Rogan, as is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, of course, has moved to Austin. Glenn Beck left New York and moved. So a lot of people who make a lot of money, who reach the point of making a lot of money, and who are realizing that you can get the talent, you can find the culture, find the people in places like Austin, Texas. You don't have to stay in California. Now, note that Austin, Texas is the most leftist place in Texas, and quite leftist by any standard. So it is still true, unfortunately, that if you want culture, if you want a well-educated, well-motivated workforce, it's the cities where you go to, and the cities tend to be on the left. I don't think Nashville is left, but Austin certainly is very leftist. Michael asked, do you attract your own energy, or do opposites attract in the context of friendship and a romantic relationship? I don't think opposites attract. I don't get the whole idea of opposites attracting at all. I don't think that's true, and I don't think it works that way. There's a sense in which complements attract, and the complements can be viewed wrongly, I think, as opposites. So, but certainly complements, people who are different, do attract. I don't think you're attracted to clones of yourself, to people, particularly in romantic love. In friendship is a little different. But you're looking for somebody who complements you, who's energy level, whose attitudes, whose attitude towards values is oriented in the same direction as you, but is different in some important way that makes it interesting. And that makes you better, makes you whole, right? In that it complements it. In friendship, I think it's a little different. In friendship, you're more likely to look for people who are more like you. You're not going to spend as much time with them, and you want that, it's much more focused on direct, on communication, you're not living with them. But friendship too, I think you attract a wide variety of people as long as the orientation is the same, as long as the values are similar. Again, I think once you find people with similar values to yours, it can be a wide array of different levels of energy and different levels of just personality and inclinations. Michael asks, is beauty subjective? If I find one woman beautiful and you don't, who is objectively right? I mean, it's not that it's objective. So I think that there are two things. So I think there are standards of beauty that are objective. There are standards of beauty that are objective. But those standards are pretty broad, are pretty wide. And it's also true that beauty is not independent of your other values. So it's dependent, it's related, it's integrated with your other values. So I think for you, given your set of values, and within the general category of the beautiful, what you find beautiful is personal. Again, I don't like the term subjective for this. It's still personal. It is a reflection of your particular values, what you value. How your particular values relate to beauty in a woman, let's say, I haven't really thought through, but partially is what you know about the woman, right? I know women who are considered beautiful who I find ugly because I know something about them, and that has impacted the way I view them. So personality shapes what I find beautiful. So again, there are certain things that are just completely personal and unrelated to your other values, like I think things like color, but even there, as I said, it relates to how you grew up, where you grew up, what you value, what you care about, what you don't care about, what experiences you had. Everything it has a reason. It has a cause. And the cause is sometimes your other values, and I think that's related to beauty. So we're all going to find different women beautiful, but it's not subjective. It's individual. It's personal because it relates to your personal values that are not subjective. They're objective because they relate to you. They relate to what's true for you. Somebody says you can create Silicon Valley anyway, Ragnar of the desert. Not really. I mean, there's a reason why Silicon Valley is where it is. First, Silicon Valley has two great universities, which I think is important. It has Stanford and Berkeley. And in particular, Stanford, its emphasis on technology and everything else has been crucial to the development of Silicon Valley. Second, once you get the first few companies there, HP, and then what's the name of the first semiconductor company that then spun off to create Intel? Fairchild? Something like that. And then you get Intel, and then Apple, and then once you get a few of those core, now you've created these immense magnets, and you've created a networking effect, and then you've attracted the venture capital, and the venture capital sets their offices in Palo Alto and Menlo Park, and slowly you create this effect where to do the same thing anywhere else is almost impossible. It's really difficult in terms of attracting capital, in terms of attracting talent, in terms of dealing with other companies And knowing just the information flows, knowing what's going on and what the latest things are and what the latest advances are in terms of technology, in terms of business models. There's a massive impact for everybody culturally to be in one place. And that's what happened in Silicon Valley. And it's hard to overestimate. It truly is a massive effect that is much bigger than taxes and regulations and a lot of other issues. Do intellectuals promote altruism because they want to control us, or they think it makes us better people, and that altruism makes civilization more humane? Well, I think it's both. So, most of the intellectuals do it because they think it's the right thing to do, because this is what they've learned, this is what their predecessors believed, this is what they understand the intellectual history to suggest is the truth, is right, is good. They evade in order to do that, and they have to in order to stay mainstream, in order to stay like everybody else. So they evade all the evidence that suggests the opposite in order to sustain this myth within themselves that civilization will be more humane and that it makes us better people and all of this, right? Some of them, the more self-aware, do it because they want to control. And then they're more prominent. Then they're the ones who may be going to politics. They're the ones who have a hand on the lever. There's no question in my mind that Paul Krugman wants control. He might never admit it to himself that that's what motivates him, but he wants control. Whereas most intellectuals, no, this is what's expected. This is the world in which they live. This is the only set of ideas they're familiar with, which is the ideas of that morality involves self-sacrifice, morality involves living for others. Oops, I'm trying to catch all these. I'm just reminding you that today is not the match. The match is on, just in case, but the match is on the 31st, the show of the 31st. So save some dry powder for then. Let me just copy paste some of these before I lose them. And I still do want to talk about Christmas, and I do need to talk about, in particular, favorite Christmas movies, right? So we have to do that as well. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me just make sure I catch all of these questions. There were a lot of them. Where were you the last few days where I got very few questions? Well, Michael wasn't around. That's the big difference. Michael always asks a lot of questions and always puts a lot of money behind his questions. So, all right, let's, here's more. Wow. Michael is just dominating the super chat. He has a ton of questions. They're good questions. All right, we'll start at the top and go down. All right, I think I've got everything. What's an example of a breakdown of epistemology today? Well, you see it everywhere. I'll give you an example. I did a show on this. The inability of people to think about risk. The inability of people to think about, in COVID, what is the real risk to them? What is the real risk to their children? How many people are really dying from this? Therefore, what is the probability of them actually dying from this? I find it astounding that people can go from, this is a very deadly disease, reality is a very deadly disease for old people, to, I have to protect my child from COVID, when the probability of a child dying from COVID is basically zero. Now, and then they'll say to me, if I say that, they'll say to me, but I just read a story about a child who died from COVID. Yes, a probability almost close to zero is not a probability of zero. It's not probability of zero. So it's not the case that you can use anecdotes as evidence, proof, reality. And then, look at the breakdown in epistemology that's involved in this election. Donald Trump lost. There is zero evidence of systemic fraud. But look at the number of people. not doing their homework, not investigating, believing anything that somebody says anywhere, as long as it supports the conclusion that they want to get, which is there was massive fraud committed. Right? To me, the thing that is most scary about 2020, since you asked this question, is the massive, in my lifetime, unprecedented example of the breakdown of epistemology. Now, it's probably always been the case that there have been people like this. But 2020 has brought it all to the forefront. I think COVID and Trump, right, has brought to the forefront the whole idea, the whole or the whole phenomena of the inability of people to think properly, to use their minds, to be able to distinguish between the arbitrary and evidence, to be able to think probabilistically and think about risk and evaluate risk properly. That will be, in my summary of 2020, the thing that I found most scary in 2020. People's inability to think properly, to use reason, to evaluate, to analyze, to get evidence, to think objectively, to be objective about what they know, what they don't know, what is evidence and what is not evidence, what is fact and what is not fact. So, yes, I found 2020 to be scary in that sense, both on the COVID side and on the post-election, and of course the whole Trump phenomena that I've talked about so often. And again, the phenomena of people who are rabid, about Trump and don't see any flaws and no problems. All of that is all right. Are we really living in a Kantian culture today? If that were the case, wouldn't we all be starving and confined to gulags? No, we're living in a culture that is at war with itself. So you're right. We're not living in a culture that is completely Kantian, because Kant's philosophy has not penetrated every aspect of every one of our lives. What we're living in is the midst of a civil war, intellectually. But a civil war where there's a sense in which only one side is fighting. And that is the Kantian side. And I'm not just talking about pure Kant, but Kant as filtered through, Kant as interpreted by, Kant as understood by, Kant as his impact on the whole string of philosophers that have led to critical race theory and postmodernism and all the variations of duty ethics and the secularization of altruism. All of that is Kantian, left, right, middle, in a philosophical way. So it's not like, and I see this all the time when people criticize me or whatever about saying Kant has influence today and say, oh, nobody reads Kant and nobody believes in Kant and none of these thinkers actually like Hitler. Hitler never read Kant. He never said he was influenced by Kant. That's not the point. The point is, are there people out there? Are there people out there who were influenced by a philosopher or thinker that was influenced by a philosopher or thinker, who was influenced by a philosopher or thinker, where the origin of the idea, the origin of the principle, the origin of the orientation is Kant? And the answer to that with regard to Hitler is yes. And the answer to that with regard to most bad people today is yes. And to understand that, to go through how Kant has led to where we are today, the chain of events, the chain of ideas, you have to read Dominus Parallels. You have to read Leonard Peikoff, because he lays that out. He is the master of it. Troy, thank you. Wow. Troy has been super generous to the Iran Book Show this year. So it's not like Kant is whispering in people's ears right now, or like everybody's reading Kant. It's the cultural impact that he's had over the last 200 years, 200 some years. So that's one side of it. And the other side that's battling against the Kantian influence is the Enlightenment, the ideas of reason and progress and success. And that's the battle. That's the battle in our culture today. And the reason I said one side is fighting and the other isn't is that the Kantian side is engaged. The Kantian side dominates the intellectual high ground. The Kantian side is everywhere, often on both sides of the political aisle, right? That's why they're all collectivists. The Aristotelian Enlightenment side is really in the way we live our lives. It's in particularly in America, it's in the business of business. It's in tech. It's in our respect for science and engineering. It's in our admiration for entrepreneurs. That is where the remnant of the Enlightenment is. And imagine if that went out. Imagine if that disappeared. Then we would be starving. We would be in gulags. And that's why, in spite of all the problems with Silicon Valley, I'm still an admirer and still want everybody to be an admirer, because that is, in a sense, the practical, the actions that they partake in. Not necessarily the ideas that they advocate, but the actions that they partake in, and the ideas as specific to their work. That's the Enlightenment. That's the last, in a sense, bastion of Enlightenment. Certainly the Enlightenment is not in our universities. It's not in our high schools. It's not in our churches. It's in our businesses. It's in our workplaces. And as the left starts eating away at that, then you get the gulags and you get the starvation. When American business falls under the spell of the Kantians, which I think will happen when as we become more fascist in this country, that's when it's all over. Do you think most people today are immoral outside of their careers? I don't know most. I don't know how to put a number on it, but yes, a lot of people, in the sense that they're not fully rational. So immorality is not about doing something horrible. I murdered somebody. That's downright evil. But immorality is you're immoral to the extent that you practice irrationality, to the extent that you evade reality, to the extent that you don't think. Now, could you say that most people today are not thinkers outside of their work? I'd say yes. And therefore, most of them are immoral. Not in the kind of, again, not in your going to hell kind of Christian sense, but in the sense of they're screwing their own lives. They're not living the best life that they can be. How many of you listening to the show right now are not living up to your values, are not being the best versions of yourself that you can be, are not taking the objectivist morality that we've talked about a lot, thanks to Troy on this show, seriously and implementing it and acting on it and living it? How many of you don't take the virtue of pride, of moral ambition seriously? Well, to the extent that you don't do any of those, particularly if you're listening to the show, to that extent you're immoral, not again in the sense that you're hurting other people, but in the sense that you're hurting yourself. For objectivism, immorality is about what you do to you. Hurting yourself is immoral. To the extent that you're not rational, to the extent that you evade, don't think things through, follow your emotions, to that extent you're hurting yourself. And therefore, those are acts of immorality. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Just close this one second. So, yeah, a lot of people immoral. Many of us are. An objectivist, when he does something like that, learns from it and strives to be perfect, to not breach his morality again. That doesn't make you an immoral person. It means it's an act of immorality. But people who regularly, systematically don't think for themselves. Now, part of it is you can excuse them because they don't know any better. They've never been taught a proper rational morality. They've never been taught that what they should do is think. And many of them just don't have the skill set, don't have the knowledge to do it. Right? So you're not going to. So a lot of it's ignorance. So yeah, let me take that back. So it's not that most people in the world out there are immoral. Most people in the world are ignorant. They are doing things that are hurting themselves, that are bad. But they don't know. They haven't really even thought about it. And that's what's sad about it. That's the great thing about objectivism, is that it brings to the forefront this idea of this is morality. Morality is about living. It's about making the most of your life. And now you get to choose. All right, let's do this. I know a lot of you want me to get to my favorite Christmas movie, or my favorite and least favorite. We're going to do both. Do my least favorite Christmas movie and my favorite Christmas movie, and maybe a few others. We'll throw in a few others. But I've got a lot of Super Chat questions here. So you're going to have to give me like 10, 20 minutes to go over the Super Chat questions, and then we'll do the movie. Or should I do the movie first? What do you guys think? Well, let me do this. Let me do a $50 question that Michael asked, and then we'll do the $50 question. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. That's the next question. And then we'll do the movie, and then we'll go back to the Super Chat question. Okay, here it is. You say the regressive left can't win. Then how come de Blasio won twice in New York City with such a large margin? I didn't say the regressive left can't win in a particular place at a particular time. De Blasio, I don't think would win again. I mean, San Francisco is ruled by de Blasio's. Portland, Oregon is ruled by de Blasio's. I don't think they can win on a national scale. I don't think they can win outside of little pockets of very, very, very regressive left strongholds. I don't think they can win a national election. I don't even think they could win in New York and San Francisco if there was even a mild opposition. Right? So, Republicans won in New York. Giuliani won. Bloomberg won. De Blasio won because Republicans and centrists couldn't put up anybody against him. And I don't think a de Blasio-like candidate is going to win next time in New York. And I think take Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is a small place. Yeah, if you bring a concentration of leftists all into one small geographic location, well, of course they're going to vote themselves regressive. And as long as they're being subsidized by the external world, whether it's by the state or by the federal government, they can do a lot of really, really bad things and survive. San Francisco is a great example. As long as there's Silicon Valley, San Francisco could keep being regressive, at least for a while. There'll be a backlash. But I do not believe that on a national scale, people would tolerate the kind of nonsense. Notice with de Blasio. Notice that de Blasio, when he came in, one of the first things he did when he became mayor of New York is hire a good, by objective standards, I think, chief of police. He didn't go with defunding the police. He didn't go with some crazy regressive left theory of policing. He actually hired a guy who had done a good job in New York, I think in the 80s, and then gone to LA and was not coming back to New York, and kind of a broken window kind of policing. So even de Blasio, in order to maintain power in New York, had to move to the center. Now, he hasn't moved to the center on everything, but on policing, which is crucial, he had to move to the center early on. And I think you'll see that as a pattern. It's only in places like Portland San Francisco, Seattle, that are small concentrated populations of a high dose of regressive leftists that have, for all kinds of historical and other reasons, sources of revenue that keep funding them. Can this sustain itself for very long? It can't do so on a national scale, I don't think. Not in America. I hope I'm right. But then the alternative isn't great either. All right, Christmas movies. Let's do that, and then we'll go back to Super Chat. So I always forget movies. I don't remember names. I don't remember my lists. I don't have a list of favorite Christmas movies. So what I did was I went online and I searched for 40 best Christmas movies of all time. And 40, I've got, one is 63. Where did they get 63 from? 63 best Christmas movies of all time. The 63 one is from Rotten Tomato. Right? So, and I've got one from, let's see, I've got Rotten Tomato. I've got The Muse, 5. That was a weird list. I've got one from The Independent. I figured I'd get a British one just to see if there was any American slant to this. I tried Stacker. Stacker was very strange. I don't know about Stacker. And then I got one from IMBD from 2018. All right. So, you guys, I'm curious to know what you think your favorite Christmas movie is. But what I want to do is go over some of these lists. So I'm going to go over the 63 movies from IMBD. And I'm just going to run down them quickly, give you like a 2-word my interpretation of them. And I will tell you what my favorite of all of these is. But so we're going to start with number 63. We're going to do 63 movies in like really, really fast. Okay. 63's Miracle on 34th Street, the 1994 version. It's good. It's not great. The original was a lot better. Preacher's Wife with Denzel Washington. I love Denzel Washington as an actor. This cute, overly religious movie, but it's not bad. 1996. The Grinch. The Dr. Seuss Grinch, 2018. Yeah, this was good. It's 2018, isn't it older than that? Anyway, The Grinch is good. I really think The Grinch is a fun movie. The animation is good. It was, and the sound is good. Really, one of my favorites. Christmas Chronicles, don't know it. Christmas Chronicles 2, don't know it. Love Actually, that was a fun movie. Hugh Grant, 2003. Liam Neeson, Hugh Grant, Emma Thompson. Romantic comedy. Not sure why it's Christmassy, but good movie. I enjoyed it. Anytime I say good, I mean I enjoyed it. I'm not making an aesthetic evaluation. Krampus, don't know that one. National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, fun. A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas. I don't like anything Harold and Kumar. Mickey's Christmas Carol, sounds bad. The Night Before, haven't seen. Home Alone. Home Alone is number 52 here. Other lists I've seen, it's number 2 or number 3 or number 4. Home Alone is considered one of the great Christmas classics. I think it's a really fun Christmas movie. It's about the ingenuity of a young boy and his ability to thwart these idiots who are trying to rob the house after he was left in the house over Christmas. So yeah, Home Alone is funny, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's enjoyable. It's got some great performances, Macaulay Culkin and Joe Pesci. And that makes my top 10 Christmas movies, sure. Frosty the Snowman, don't really know it. The Best Man Holiday, don't know it. Scrooge was fun. Scrooge with Bill Murray, where he plays a horribly greedy, awful, executive. Can I say something about Scrooge for a minute? I mean, there are a number of movies based on the story of Scrooge. But I think Scrooge is a good guy. I like Scrooge. It's sad because the problem with Scrooge is he has no pride. The problem with Scrooge is he doesn't take what he does seriously enough. So here's Scrooge, building a business, making the best of a difficult situation, running a store, making some money, trying to do well. But he has no appreciation for that. So he feels, and he's made to feel guilty for all of that. And is therefore, instead of being admired and for the job creator that he is, instead of his workers appreciating him for the fact that he's paying market wages and that they have a job and they have somewhere to go and to feed themselves, he is portrayed as a cheap, miserable, pathetic, horrible human being. But why? He's productive. He's passionate about his work. He hasn't taken his life seriously enough. He hasn't pursued pride seriously enough. He's bought into this altruism too much. So all the movies based on the Scrooge story have this underlying negative premise about business, underlying negative premise about being a go-getter, about being ambitious, about having a career. All of them, Scrooged, and all the Christmas movies that have this premise. So I dislike the premise. The movie's fun, but the premise is terrible. And remember, Scrooge is the good guy. He makes Christmas possible by creating jobs and by selling stuff to people so they can have gifts to give. The Santa Claus, don't know that one. Tim Allen, don't know that one. Black Christmas, don't know that one. The Ref, don't know that one. Jeux Noël. Jeux Noël is a war movie about during World War I. I think it was the first Christmas during World War I where there was a ceasefire and the Germans and the French got together and they kind of celebrated Christmas together. And then they go back to slaughtering each other the next day. It's a good anti-war, very insightful movie. Definitely worth watching. Happy Christmas, don't know that one. The Muppet Christmas Carol. The Muppets are always fun. A Christmas Horror Story, don't know that. Let It Snow, don't know that. White Christmas. White Christmas is a classic with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. That's a fun, benevolent, wonderful movie from 1954, kind of my era of movies. And so certainly one of my favorites. And an Apocalypse, never heard of that. While You Were Sleeping, another one of these Sandra Bullock romantic comedies. Okay, don't remember why it's a Christmas movie, but fine. Bad Santa, all right, not my thing. The Man Who Invented Christmas, that's another spin on Ebenezer Scrooge. Not a fan. Batman Returns. I have no idea why Batman movie is a Christmas movie. The Bishop's Wife. This is a Cary Grant, Loretta Young, David Niven. Love the actors. Love the benevolence. It's fine. Not a great movie. Happiest Season. Don't know that one. Elf. Elf is fun. Fun. Yeah. Not a particularly serious movie. Not a great movie, but just fun. Christmas in Connecticut. Barbara Stanwyck. Anything with Barbara Stanwyck is worth watching. Again, fun movie, benevolent movie. Christmas Carol. Again, Charles Dickens' story. This is Ebenezer Scrooge. This is the 1951 version. It's just sad to see businessmen portrayed this way. White Reindeer. Don't know that one. Un Conte de Noël. Don't know that one. Gremlins. Don't know why that's a Christmas movie. Not a fan of Gremlins. Steven Spielberg's. No, it's Joe Dante, not Steven Spielberg. Joe Dante's. Trading Places. I like Trading Places. It's got real problems. Primarily the ease at which you can take a homeless person and teach them how to do finance. And it's got a very bad attitude, again, towards business and finance more broadly. But it's funny. You got to give it that it's funny. And it shows, that you can be self-made, that you can change your own destiny. Better Watch Out. Didn't see that. Tokyo Godfathers, didn't see that. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was fun. I enjoyed that with Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer. Quite violent. Action movie. A Christmas Tale, don't know that. A Christmas Story, right? 1983. Yeah, that's a fun movie. I know a lot of you think that's the best movie. That's the best Christmas movie ever. It's a fun movie to watch. Christmas Story. To me, it's not one of my tops. Little Women. Little Women has made many of these lists. It usually is in the top 5, top 10. Here's number 20. Great lineup. Winona Ryder, Susan Sarandon. Yeah, it's Louisa Mary Alcott's story again. Benevolent, good. We'll get to Die Hard. Don't worry, we're getting to Die Hard. Babes in Toyland. Don't know that one. Edward Scissorhands. Not particularly a favorite of mine. Klaus. I think I've seen Klaus, but I don't remember anything about it. Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey. I don't think I've seen that. Remember the Night. Remember the Night with Barbara Stanwyck. Again, anything with Barbara Stanwyck is worth seeing. She is amazing. That was in 1940. Remember the Night. Romantic comedy with Fred MacMurray. It's I love these movies. Oh, it's Preston Sturges. No, it's not Preston Sturges. He wrote it. He didn't direct it. But anything by Preston Sturges is going to be funny. It's going to be smart. And Remember the Night is a good movie. Definitely with any of those movies from the 1940s and 50s with Barbara Stanwyck, written or directed by Preston Sturges. They were a lot of fun. All right, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, 1964. I don't remember. Arthur Christmas, 2011. Don't remember. Here, at number 12 is Die Hard. Now, I don't know why Die Hard's a Christmas movie. It doesn't have a Christmas theme, but it's set in Christmas because the whole thing is during a Christmas party. I think Die Hard's one of the better action movies, maybe one of the best action movies. It's fun. It's exciting. I think the first time I saw it, it's edge of your seat. It's one guy taking on a whole array of terrorists and doing it smartly and cleverly and picking them off and destroying them. And it's amazing. It's an amazing action movie. If you like action movie. Somebody says the Lady Eve. Yeah, the Lady Eve is Preston Sturges. The Lady Eve is maybe my favorite Preston Sturges movie. It's fabulous. It's so benevolent, so much fun, so funny and heartwarming. It's really good. It's one of my, I don't know, certainly in my top 50 movies is The Lady Eve. So Die Hard at number 12 here. Charlie Brown Christmas. I'm not a big fan of Charlie Brown. Tangerine. I haven't seen Tangerine. It made a lot of top 5 lists. Carol, also from 2015. Both of these movies in 2015. Also made a lot of top 5 lists. Not on mine. I haven't seen either one of these movies. I guess I need to go and watch these. Meet Me in St. Louis. Another one of these classics, 1944. Judy Garland, Margaret O'Brien, Mary Astor. Benevolent, fun, good movie. Little Women for 2019. Ooh, wow. It's rare to see a 2019 movie in a list like this. Okay. The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm not a big fan of this, but it makes all the lists. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 1967. I think actually, this one's good. I don't know how it compares to the 2018 one, but I like the story of the Grinch Stole Christmas. I like the Grinch story. All right, that was number 5. Number 5. Anybody know what number 1 is? Number 1 in almost every list out there. Number 1. All right, number 4. And my number 1. Number 4, according to IMDb, critics rating. Not IMDb. This is Rotten Tomatoes. This is number 4 according to Rotten Tomatoes with a critics rating of 100%. My favorite Christmas movie. It has both a Christmas feel to it. It has the benevolence. It has the romance. It has the comedy. It has all of that. Number 4 and my number 1 is not going to be It's a Wonderful Life. There's no way my number 1 movie for anything is It's a Wonderful Life. We're going to talk about It's a Wonderful Life in a minute. But number 1, in my view, best Christmas movie ever. And I did this last Christmas, so some of you should know what this is. is another Jimmy Stewart movie. Another movie with Jimmy Stewart, but not It's a Wonderful Life. Now, It's a Wonderful Life will actually, I'll talk about that. It will actually be my worst Christmas movie. It's going to be the Christmas movie I hate the most. No, my favorite is a movie called The Shop Around the Corner. I know many of you don't even know the movie, but I see that Oscar 6793 got it right. But absolutely, The Shop Around the Corner. The Shop Around the Corner by, in my view, the greatest comedy director in history, and that is Ernst Lubitsch. Ernst Lubitsch. Shop Around the Corner with Jimmy Stewart, Margaret O'Sullivan, Frank Morgan, Joseph Schildkraut. Just fantastic movie. Benevolent movie. Romantic comedy. If you've seen You've Got Mail, I'm sure you've seen You've Got Mail. Anyway, You've Got Mail, this is the original You've Got Mail. It was done in 1940. 1940. The Shop Around the Corner. If you've never seen it, it's just a wonderful, wonderful movie. I think I saw it last Christmas. It's a perfect Christmas movie. Jimmy Stewart is young and wonderful. Margaret O'Sullivan is charming, and it's just a clever premise and a movie that's been made over and over and over again over the years. You've Got Mail is one version of it, but there are many versions of it. That is my favorite Christmas movie. Number 3, according to Rotten Tomatoes, is Holiday Inn, another wonderful one. Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire. This is 1942 musical, just fantastic. By the way, all the top 4 Christmas movies, according to Rotten Tomato, were all made in the 1940s. A great, great, great decade. A great decade. Great decade for movies. Maybe the best decade for movies ever. Number 2, Miracle on 34th Street, the 1947 version. Another wonderful movie with Maureen O'Hara again. She's in a lot of these lists because it's the 1940s and she dominated. And finally, by almost all lists, the number 1 movie, Christmas movie of all time, and my most hated movie, a Christmas movie, is It's a Wonderful Life. Now, why don't I like It's a Wonderful Life? So I warn you, this will have spoilers. Why don't I like It's a Wonderful Life? Where does one begin? My primary objection to It's a Wonderful Life is it tries to have its cake and eat it too. It creates a character who is fundamentally altruistic. He is the epitome of altruism. He is the epitome of somebody who does not pursue his values, who does not rashly conceive of what will lead him to be happy and go out and achieve it. Instead, it is about a man who gives up on his values. Wanted to go to Paris? Nope. Wanted to go to university? Nope. Married his high school sweetheart, even though he wanted to travel and he wanted to see the world first. Took over the family business, bank in this case. Even though he never wanted to go into the family business, he wanted to escape the family. Ran a bank in an altruistic way. Didn't foreclose when people couldn't pay their debts. Basically ran the bank into the ground. So a man who is an altruist through and through, because he has not clearly identified his values and therefore has not pursued them. And yet, in spite of that, and in spite of the consequence of that, and the consequence of that are, let's be clear, that he's ready to commit suicide. He's ready to jump off a bridge. In spite of that, the movie suggests that he's lived an amazing life. And the movie ends with everybody coming together, saving his butt. Everybody loves him. He's wonderful. He's going to live happily ever after. No, he's not. He just tried to commit suicide for a really good reason. Because he has no values, and the values he used to have, he gave up. He didn't plan his life. He didn't shape his soul. He didn't shape his future. It just happened. And the movie tries to suggest that if you do that, if you live the perfect altruistic life, you will be happy. You will be successful, but in a spiritual sense. No, you won't. You'll be miserable. Now, if the movie had ended with him jumping off the bridge, I would have rated it as a great movie. But he doesn't jump off the bridge, and everybody bails him out. And you have the pretense of that he's going to live happily ever after. No, there's no way that can happen. He is an empty, soulless, valueless person. His values are secondhand. His values are just the values that the society provided him, that his family enforced on him. His values as an individual are zilch, nothing, non-existence. It was made by Frank Capra, who very much had this sense of America, this sense of altruism. Now, he bailed people out. So, yeah, he's very much a Peter Kidding. But a Peter Kidding with a happy ending, and that pisses me off. Completely. So I dislike It's a Wonderful Life. If you think about the banker who's the bad guy, well, he's the one who's actually foreclosing on people who can't pay their loans. I mean, what else is he supposed to do? But he's made out to be a thief in order to nail him. Right? So everything about this movie I don't like. Other than it's well acted. It's Timmy Stewart. He's a good actor. It's well made. The lighting is beautiful. The scene, the direction is excellent. Frank Capra is an exceptional director. And it's a story, but it's a bad story. It's a bad story. George Bailey has no soul. He has no soul because it's not his soul. It's a soul created from fragments of other people. He has no values that are his values. He helps people. Why? Because that's what you're supposed to do. George Bailey, when he was young, he wanted to be somebody. He wanted to be something. And everything he wanted, he gave up. Everything he desired, he gave up. What kind of soul do you have when you give up all the things that are valuable to you? That's not how you build a soul. It's not how you create a soul. So this is where I am not a conservative. Conservatives love this movie because they want to have their altruism and their happy ending and their capitalism. And you can't. This is why you're losing. This is why you have to lose. All right, that's my Christmas movies. All right, let's do these super chat questions. We got a lot of them. All right, currently rereading Intro to Objectivist Epistemology. Quite challenging, but actually personally regarded as the most interesting branch of philosophy. What would be your favorite branch personally? I mean, my favorite branch is ethics. It's about how to live your life. It's about why and what. Epistemology is interesting. I find it intellectually challenging and interesting, but I find it, the deeper I go, the harder it gets, and the less relevant I find it to me living my life. In ethics, the deeper you get, the more interesting it becomes, to me. Now, it's just me, not a judgment on anybody else, right? So to me, it's definitely ethics. When you were in the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, did you see any abuses by Israeli soldiers to Palestinians? No, but what do we mean by abuses? And I wasn't in a position necessarily to see abuses of Palestinians. I was in the tank corps on the border, no Palestinians there, and then I was in military intelligence. And during the war, what do you mean by during the war? It was a war with Lebanon. It wasn't a war with the Palestinians. This is also during a period where there was little terrorism in the West Bank, in Gaza. They were actually fairly peaceful. Palestinians worked in Israel, would spend 5-6 nights a week in Israel and then go home for the weekend. It's a period where there wasn't a lot of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. I think it was a missed opportunity because that's probably the period in which peace should have been established. But the reason it wasn't is because the Palestinian leadership, which was super militant and horrific, but wasn't in Israel. It wasn't in the West Bank or Gaza. It was in Tunisia, led by a monster by the name of Yasser Arafat. They didn't want peace, and they certainly didn't want peace that would be in any way beneficial to Israel. So they they gained power from continued conflict. So, let's do another time. You can ask me lots of questions about Israel and the Palestinians and all that stuff, because I could say a lot about that, about this idea of Israelis abusing the Palestinians. Are intellectuals today less nihilistic than they were 50 years ago? Because there's so much more literature out there today about happiness and being psychologically healthy. I think that intellectuals are more nihilistic, but the culture, I don't know that I think the culture is also more nihilistic, but there's a strong element, and this is where this Enlightenment force fighting against Kantianism, there's a strong element of individuals who want to live a better life for themselves, who don't take intellectuals seriously. That's what saves the culture, is we don't take our Kantian intellectuals seriously. And these people want to live a better life, and they're not getting the kind of advice on how to do it from the intellectuals. So instead, they are searching for it in other places. And the obvious place to search for it, one place they search for it, is in the what you'd call self-help aisle of the bookstore. And so there's a lot of work on psychology, on self-help being done, some of it probably very good, that is done because people know that that the intellectuals are not guides. And this goes back to why I think at the end the far left is a dead end politically. Because I think people know that is a dead end. People won't accept that as a way of life, right? And even people who nominally vote for those people then go to the aisle and look for self-help stuff. At some point, if they really care about self at any level, they will reject that. So, remember, there's a battle going on in the culture and in people's souls. A battle between what the intellectuals are teaching them and what they actually want. And in the long run, the intellectuals win. But because people need guidance and they need intellectuals. Intellectuals are a need, a human need. But how long that is, how bloody the battle is hard to say. Doesn't anyone who isn't exposed to objectivism end up as somewhat of a nihilist? I don't think so. I think they might end up, they can end up in lots of different ways. I think people, what about before objectivism? Was everybody a nihilist? I don't think so. I think that's too of a negative way to view the world. I think that people might not end up as happy as they could be. They might not end up as whole as they could be. But people don't have to succumb to nihilism. They can still, common sense, value life, value their life, value the world around them. I don't think you necessarily have to become a cynic or necessarily have to hate the good for being the good or success for being successful. So no, I don't think that everyone ends up as a nihilist, even somewhat of a nihilist, not at all. I think most people are better than that. Is entitling a book The Tyranny of Merit a declaration of war against ability? Is Michael Sandel evil? I mean, Michael Sandel is certainly evading, and in that sense, immoral. Yes, I think he is. It is a war against ability. Now, if you read the book, the title is more controversial than what he actually writes in the book. I mean, that's how you sell books, is by having titles like that. But yeah, his ideas, given that he is a philosopher, well-educated, you've got to judge him all. And yes, I think his ideas are evil ideas, and he has necessarily evaded in order to come to those ideas. What is your favorite quote by Aristotle? I really don't have one. I don't hold quotes in my mind. I mean, the same thing with Ayn Rand. I don't have quotes just there. I don't think in those terms. So I don't have a favorite quote from Aristotle. Can you do a show with Blake Scholl for your first show of 2021? I'm really curious about the status of boomers. It won't be the first show of 2021, but it will be a show in 2021 if Blake agrees, and I think he will. I will be doing a show with Blake. Andy Bernstein is still saying there's too much circumstantial evidence of fraud to ignore. Would you be willing to debate him on the issue? No, it's not an issue that's important enough for me to debate. And what are we going to debate? He's going to bring a list of circumstantial evidence, and I'm going to try to refute it all. There's no way to debate it. Just accept the fact that one of us is right and one of us is wrong, and here's the challenging part, you have to decide which one. I'm not going to bail you out on that one. And it's not, why would I debate something like that? And with Andy, I mean, there's just no, you make an evaluation based on what he says, or based on what I said. Do a little bit of research yourself if it's important to you, and figure out who's right and who's wrong. I think it's pretty clear. What's the deal with people where, I mean, even the American court system thinks it's pretty clear. Even the Supreme Court thinks it's pretty clear. Pretty much every court in the land that has heard this is pretty clear. What's the deal with people wearing masks outside when there's no one else around? I am seeing this more and more and find it completely ridiculous. I think it speaks to what you said about inability to weigh risk. Partially it's the inability to weigh risk. It's partially also the conformity. There's a law that says you have to wear a mask outdoors, I guess, in some places, and they wear it. It's conformity. It's the inability to weigh risk. It's following orders, which is conformity. And it's virtue signaling. It's telling the world, see, I am so good that I will even wear my mask. Wandering around in nature with a beautiful breeze on me and not another human being in sight. So, yeah. If I wear a mask outdoors, it's only in places where there are a lot of people, where the police might show up. But I try to not wear a mask outdoors. It's ridiculous. The risk is basically zero. Do you think that Trump is self-destructing now that he has to transfer power to Biden? He perceived as an out-of-control, classless, sore loser that will do anything to stay in power. It has left many in the GOP with sour taste. Yeah, I mean, I think he is self-destructing. Now, the core, the base, the people most excited about him think he's courageous, and that's what he's counting on. He's counting on this to be his final stand, his battle against evil. and that his base will, will think he's amazing for fighting the left. You can see that all over the place, right? He's fighting the left. Isn't he wonderful? I don't think that's what's happening. I think a lot of people see through it. I think he's forcing the GOP to stand by him, and to the extent that they do, they're self-destructing. I've never seen anything like it in politics of a free country. It's one of the most abysmal, pathetic, irrational, and evasive acts that I've ever seen, what Trump is doing. And it's completely devoured or detached from any facts. And I hope that the GOP sees it for what it is, which is a privacy of consciousness, a man with no self-esteem who cannot stand the fact that he is lost, and is using this as a marketing ploy to establish himself for a post-presidency as the real fighter against the left. But I like the scene where Potter offers George Bailey a great job as his assistant, and George Bailey turns it down. The audience wonders what they'd do in that spot. Yeah, I think it is a good scene. George Bailey is principled around his values, and he would never work for Potter because Potter is profit-seeking. Potter is self-interested. And that goes against George Bailey's principles. In that sense, he's drawn as a consistently altruistic character with altruistic principles. Now, it's also established that Potter is a thief at that point. Why Potter has to be a thief, that's a choice the filmmakers make. They have to do it to show the connection between self-interest and thievery. I've said in many of my talks that our culture views self-interest as lying, cheating, stealing. So they have to make Potter a lying, cheating, crook, right? All right. Merry Christmas, Yaron. Thank you for all you do. Looking forward to 2021. Listen to your new podcast. Not sure exactly when it'll launch the new podcast, but sometime early in 2021. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We will have a show on Saturday and on Sunday. Those will be my last two shows from my house in California. After that, I will be. I'll do a show on the 31st. I'm getting an office somewhere to do it from. Reminder to everybody, that show will have a $5,000 match associated with it. So every dollar we raise in that show will be matched up to $5,000. So that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we will do a summary, kind of an overview of 2020 in that show. Andrew threw in another question. Rand Paul says Trump is a good friend, though he never gets a word in. I don't know what that means. And my opinion of Rand Paul has gone down dramatically over the last few years because of how pathetic he has become when it comes to Trump. I mean, this is a man who used to complain constantly about government spending, who offered an actual budget proposal to shrink government spending dramatically, and now completely bought into the whole Trump bandwagon. Just pathetic. All right, everybody. Merry Christmas. Have a great time. Focus on self. Focus on self. Focus on what makes you happy. Focus on what are your values. Focus on what you want to do with your life. Jennifer says, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is about staying true to your own values. It's a great story. Good. There's another movie recommendation from Jennifer, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But that's what you should spend Christmas doing. Focus on your values. Your values might be your family. Your values might be your friends, your loved ones. But focus on what you value and why you value it, how it contributes to your life, how it makes your life better. How it makes your life better in a meaningful sense, in a sense of moving you towards happiness. Al Maya, I missed this question somehow. Have you seen Last Holiday starring Queen Latifah? Great Christmas movie. I have not. I'll check it out. Last Holiday. with Queen Latifah. I like Queen Latifah. She's often good. Oh, I'll do this on Saturday. I've got 2 movie recommendations for you, but I'll do that on Saturday. All right, everybody. Have a great Christmas. I'll see you on Saturday and on Sunday. And just hold in there. We're getting close to the end of this year. We've got 1 week to go. And 2020 will be amazingly over. And we can move on to 2021. Bye, everybody.